Okay, so let's get started. We're going to be taking a look in this tutorial at our injection timing tuning found within our Link G5 and G4X systems. Now, our fuel injection timing is something that we definitely want to optimize for the engine that we're working with. If we've changed the camshafts from stock, if we've changed the injectors from stock, chances are we need to also dial in our injection timing. Now, Link uses a default value to begin calibrating and tuning that works fairly well for most any engine. But we can be more specific with this, so we want to learn what the injection timing actually means and learn how to calibrate it properly. It's actually extremely simple to do. We'll talk about how to set up our injection timing table and then how to go back in after you've dialed in your main fuel table to see how you can further optimize your fuel injection timing. Now, what I want to do is talk about some specific conditions here when we're talking about our fuel injection timing. If we go to our fuel main, we know we have our fuel equation modes. There's a model and traditional. Fuel injection timing and the tuning for it is going to be the same whether in traditional or model mode. So that's the first thing to note. The second thing to note is that the injection mode, we need to be set to sequential here to truly use the injection timing values, injection timing table. The sequential option requires us to have a 720-degree sync capability with the Link and our engine. So that's going to mean that we have a cam and crank pattern that the Link can track the full 720 degrees within the auto cycle of the engine's operation. If we don't have a home sensor or a cam sensor, then likely we're not going to be able to choose sequential here. You may choose something like semi-sequential or multi-point, but you're not going to be able to choose sequential, and as a result, the injection timing won't work. So the injection timing table specifically won't work. We're going to have an untimed injection event. So we require a 720-degree sync to use the sequential option with the Link. So that's one very important detail to note. Now, most every modern engine at this point, from probably early 1990s or even earlier than that, has a cam and crank pattern or cam and crank sensor fitted to the engine to register a 720-degree sync. Most Japanese and domestic vehicles were running sequential style fuel injection from the 90s and on. So you'll find more than likely the engine you're calibrating and tuning with your G5 or G4X will use your injection mode as sequential, but I did want to mention that we have to be aware of sequential is needed to do proper fuel injection timing tuning. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is move from my basic page, and then I'm going to jump over here into my fuel page. Under fuel, we're going to find we have our fuel table, we have our target lambda table, and note here we have our injector timing table or injection timing table. This is now blank. We see there's no data available to populate in here, specifically because if we take a look at our window right here under injection timing, we're going to find our injection timing mode is set to single zone, which means that the value that we command right here, the injector timing value, is what it runs for injection timing at idle, part throttle, wide open throttle, whatever engine RPM we're operating at. Now, there's not necessarily anything wrong with having a singular injection timing value to command at all operation points, but we usually can find some efficiency, possibly some power and torque increases, and potentially having a little bit better throttle response through a better injection timing with our engine that we're calibrating. So we can tune everything based on 400 or 360 degrees, and then we can go back in and turn the table on and actually see by varying the values what optimization we can find with our injection timing. But for right now, let's just go ahead and just leave it at 400 in single zone. Let's move to our next topic right here of injection timing position. We see we have three options. We have start of injection or SOI, then we have end of injection, EOI, and then there's also center of injection, which is something I've never had to use on any engine management, on any engine I've ever calibrated and tuned. So I'm not even going to talk about center of injection. Let's talk about the differences between start of injection and end of injection. Start of injection is going to be where we tell the Link in the degrees here within the engine cycle where we want the injector pulse width to start at. Now, injector pulse width is always going to vary anywhere from a millisecond to up to 25, 30 milliseconds in some cases. So if we're telling it to start at a certain point, that means it's going to have a variable ending point within the engine's rotation. This is problematic when we're talking about tuning with a port injection engine because we want to be specific of where we're spraying the fuel relative to the intake valve opening and closing events. So when we're talking about a port injection engine, that's where we have the injectors mounted in the intake port, we want to choose end of injection. End of injection is where we specify the end point for the injection to happen at. Then the start of injection point will vary based on how long that injector pulse width is commanded for. So we're able to have a better tracking relative to our valves opening and closing with the end of injection option. Now, start of injection does have its place, specifically in direct injection tuning. When we're talking about direct injection, the fuel injector is mounted within the combustion chamber. We're only concerned once the intake valve is closed, we'll start to spray our fuel, and then we're only going to spray it up to the point before the actual combustion event happens. We don't want to spray our fuel into that spark initiation point where the spark event happens and the combustion happens. That's going to potentially damage the engine and cause misfiring problems. So when we're dealing with start of injection, it's relative for direct injection engines because we want to specify where to start things at, and the end of injection point, we're going to make sure that doesn't happen into the combustion event. So it should make sense here why we choose one or the other. So end of injection is where we want to go and select when we're dealing with a port injection engine, which is the whole point of this tutorial.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.